The History of Tom Thumb, collected by Joseph Jacobs. In the days of the great Prince Arthur, there lived a mighty magician called Merlin, and the most learned and skillful enchanter the world has ever seen. This famous magician, who could take any form he pleased, was traveling about as a poor beggar, and he began very tired. He stopped at a cottage of a plowman to rest himself, and asked for some food. The countryman bade him welcome, and his wife, who was a very good-hearted woman, soon brought him some milk in a wooden bowl and some coarse brown bread on a platter. Merlin was so much pleased with the kindness of the plowman and his wife, but he could not help noticing that though everything was neat and comfortable in the cottage, they both seemed to be very unhappy. He therefore asked them why they were so melancholy, and learned that they were miserable because they had no children. The poor woman said with tears in her eyes, "I should be the happiest creature in the world if I had a son. Although he was no bigger than my husband's thumb, I would be satisfied." Merlin was so much amused with the idea of a boy no bigger than the man's thumb that he determined to grant the poor woman's wish. Accordingly, in a short time after, the plowwoman's wife had a son who, wonderful to relate, was no bigger than the father's thumb. The queen of the fairies, wishing to see the little fellow, came in at the window, and while the mother was sitting up in bed admiring him, the queen kissed the child, and giving him the name of Tom Thumb, sent for some of the fairies, who dressed her little golden godson according to her orders. An oak leaf hat he had for his crown, a shirt of web by spiders spun, with jacket wove of thistles down, his trousers were feathers done. His stockings of apple rind they tie, with eyelashes from his mother's eye, his shoes were made of mouse's skin, tanned with the downy hair within. Tom never grew any larger than his father's thumb, which was only of ordinary size, but as he got older he became cunning and full of tricks. When he was old enough to play with the boys, he had lost his own cherry stones. He used to creep into the bag of his playfellows, fill his pockets, getting out without their noticing him, would again join the game. One day, however, he was coming out of a bag of cherry stones where he had been stealing as usual, and the boy whom it belonged chanced to see him. "Ah, ah, my little Tommy," said the boy, "so I have caught you stealing my cherry stones at last, and you shall be rewarded for your thievish tricks." On saying this, he drew the string tight around his neck and gave the bag such a hearty shake that poor Tom's legs, thighs, and body were sadly bruised. He roared out in pain and begged to be let out, promising never to steal again. A short time afterward, his mother was making a batter pudding, and Tom, being very anxious to see how it was made, we got ads. Okay. Uh, Climbed up in the edge of the bowl, but his foot slipped and he plumped head over ears into the batter, without his mother noticing him, who stirred him into the pudding bag and put him in the pot to boil. The batter filled Tom's mouth and prevented him from crying, but on felt the hot water. He kicked and struggled so much in the pot that his mother thought the pudding was bewitched, and pulling it out of the pot, she threw it outside the door, and poor Tinker, who was passing by, lifted up the pudding and putting it into his budget, and then he walked off. As Tom now had gotten his mouth cleared of the batter, he began to cry loud, which so frightened the tinker that he flung down the pudding and ran away. The pudding being broke to pieces by the fall, Tom crept out, covered over with the batter. He walked home. His mother was very sorry to see her darling in such a woeful state, put him into a teacup, and soon washed off the batter, after which she kissed him and laid him in bed. Soon after the adventure of the pudding, Tom's mother went to her milk cow in the meadow, and she took him along with her. As the wind was very high, for fearing of being blown away, she tied him to a thistle with a piece of fine thread. The cow soon observed Tom's oak leaf hat, and liking the appearance of it, took poor Tom and the thistle in one mouthful. While the cow was chewing the thistle, Tom was afraid of the great teeth, which threatened to crush him in pieces. He roared out as loud as he could, "Mother, mother, where are you, Tommy, my dear?" "Tommy," said his mother. "Here, mother," he replied, "in the red cow's mouth." His mother began to cry and wring her hands, but the cow, surprised at the odd noise in her throat, opened her mouth and let Tom drop out. Fortunately, his mother caught him in her apron as he was falling to the ground, or he would have been dreadfully hurt. She put Tom in her bosom and ran home with him. Tom's father made him a whip of barley straw to drive the cattle with. After having one day gone into the fields, Tom slipped a foot and rolled in the furrow. A raven, which was flying over, picked him up and flew him over with the sea, and there dropped him. A large fish swallowed Tom the moment he fell into the sea, which was soon caught after, and brought to the table of the King Arthur. When they opened the fish in order to cook it, everyone was astonished at finding such a tiny boy, and Tom was quite delighted at being free again. They carried him to the king, who made Tom his dwarf. So he soon grew a great favorite at the court for the tricks and gambols, and he not only amused the king and queen, but also all the knights of the Round Table. It is said that when the king rode out on horseback, he often took Tom along with him, and if a shower came on, he used to creep into the Majesty's waistcoat pocket, where he slept till the rain was over. King Arthur one day asked Tom about his parents, wishing to know if they were as small as he was, and whether they were well off. He told the king that his father and his mother were tall as anybody about the court, but in rather poor circumstances. On hearing this, King carried Tom to his treasury, the place where he kept all of his money, and told him to take as much money as he could carry home to his parents, which made the poor little fellow caper with joy. Tom went immediately to procure a purse, which was received a silver 3-penny piece to put in it. Our little hero had some difficulty in lifting the burden upon his back, but at last he succeeded in getting it placed into his mind and set forward on his journey. However, without meeting any accident, and after resting himself more than 100 times by the way, in 2 days and 2 nights he reached his father's house in safety. Tom had traveled 48 hours with this huge silver piece on his back, and was almost tired to death. When his mother ran out to meet him and carried him to the house, he soon returned to the court. As Tom's clothes had suffered much in the batter pudding and the insides of the fish, Majesty saucy to her. The king sent for Tom in great haste, but being fully aware of the danger of the royal anger, he crept into an empty snail shell, where he lay for a long time until he was almost starved with hunger. But at last he ventured to peep out, and seeing the fine large butterfly on the ground near a place where he had concealment, he got close to it, and jumping astride it, he was carried up into the air, and the butterfly flew with him from tree to tree, from field to field, and at last returned to the court, where the king and nobility all strove to catch him. But at last poor Tom fell from his seat into a watering pot, in which he was almost drowned. When the queen saw him, he was in a rage, and he said he should be beheaded. And he was again put in a mousetrap until the time of his execution. However, a cat, observing something alive in the trap, patted it about until the wires broke and set Thomas at liberty. The king received Thomas again into favor, which he did not live to enjoy, for a large spider one day attacked him, and although he drew his sword and fought well, yet the spider's poisonous breath at last overcame him. He fell dead on the ground where he stood, and the spider sucked every drop of his blood. King Arthur and the whole court were so sorry at the loss of their little favorite that they went into mourning and raised a fine white marble monument over his grave with the following epitaph: "Here lies Tom Thumb, King Arthur's knight, who died by a spider's cruel bite. He was well known in Arthur's court, where he afforded gallant sport. He rode a tilt and tournament, and on a mouse a-hunting went. Alive he filled the court with mirth. His death to sorrows soon gave birth. Wipe your eyes, shake your head, and cry alas, Tom Thumb."